1977, and then again with the Celtics in 1986. As a broadcaster, Walton, he was one of a kind. He was insightful, he was enthusiastic, always had a big smile, even a bigger personality, was always a welcome addition to the ESPN family, and will certainly be missed.
I think a lot of people figure that I win all the games, you know, but really it was more the other guys than me. I played the best of my ability all the time. When people ask me questions, I tell them honest answers.
First championship at UCLA, that was big, wasn't it?
That was big, but the second one was nicer.
I've never coached a better player, I've never coached a better competitor, and I've never coached a better person than Bill Walton.
Bill.
I really don't have nothing to say.
Thank you, Boston. You're wonderful. Now let's go win a basketball game right now.
With enthusiasm and emotion, I could let my personality out and be very free on the basketball court.
Sometimes the light's all shining on me. Gotta have the right equipment. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail.
Take a bite out of it while it's lit.
While it's lit?
Say, oh, I'm kidding. Let me get out of your shot here, guys.
Great to see you, Snoop. Well, Snoop and I go way back. Snoop and I, we go way back.
Ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready.
This is called the glockenspiel, okay?
Got Jay Garcia on it. Please don't.
Yeah, that's a Jerry. National Popcorn Day, please. Party on. The physical nature of the Wildcats coming right in there. Claws flailing. Steve Miller, soar like an eagle. Yeah, Steve Miller, he's a Texan, right? Willie Nelson. I was out this morning talking to Stevie Ray and to Willie.
Yeah.
And I found something here. We were on the grass, and this was lying there, this piece of wood with some tillandsias growing on it. And this is how you use this dirt.
No,
See,
don't.
You do it like this, you get it, you sort of rub it on, you get it, and then you just sort of, okay, now I'm ready to go. I wish it could have lasted longer. Unfortunately, it didn't. But all good things and all good times, and we'll get there soon.
And you talk about one of one, that right there. Julius Erving, whose Sixers lost to Walton's Blazers in those 77 finals, wrote on X that he was saddened to hear that Walton had passed, adding, "Bill Walton enjoyed life in every way. To compete against him and to work with him was a blessing in my life. Sorry for your loss, Walton family. We'll miss him too. Doc." Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle was Walton's teammate on those 86 Celtics. He reacted just moments ago.
I just wanted to mention, you know, with the passing of Bill Walton today, just how much he meant to me and so many people that I'm close to. I've been on a text message thread with our 86 team, and you know, some of the memories are, you know, just, I mean, they're beyond priceless. He was a living, breathing event in history, just walking around. He was involved in so many events, in pop culture, in sports. You know, he played drums for the Grateful Dead in the pyramids in Egypt. You know, he's a guy that did everything. And there's been a lot of talk today about, you know, how he speaks in hyperbole so much and stuff. But he defiantly competed for every moment in life to be the greatest it could possibly be. You know, that's the best way to describe it.
Well, let that be a lesson for us all as we're joined now by PTI's Michael Wilbon, who's, of course, covered the NBA for over 4 decades. And, Mike, I know this is tough to do with someone like a Bill Walton, but how would you characterize his impact, not just on basketball, but just on the world of sports as a whole?
Rick Carlisle did it so well just now, Ellen, that was a few minutes ago, and Rick was his teammate. I got to be around that 85, 86 Celtics team a little bit at the beginning of my career covering basketball, and Bill Walton was such, I don't want to say imposing. He was the delightful figure, but there are several iterations. There was an evolution of Bill Walton. I mean, early in his life, severe stuttering problem and issues made him a complete introvert. And we saw a different person along the way. But also when Rick was describing what a a defiant competitor he was, and he was defiant personally as well, being a participant, very publicly so, in civil rights. I mean, Bill had strong opinions and beliefs and was committed to a lot of things. And I certainly just felt on the right side of things, usually when I was on the same side as Bill Walton. And that's the person. As a basketball player, remember in college, he was 86-4 was the record of his UCLA teams under John Wooden, 86-4. And we thought we'd never see anything like Kareem after Lou Alcindor. And I think Kareem was 88-2. And then Walton comes behind him and goes 86-4. And the 4 losses were by a total of 13 points. And I tried to describe to my son, my 16-year-old basketball fanatic son, what Bill Walton was like as a player. And he met Bill when I was gratefully inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame a couple of years ago. And Bill ducked his head into the room while I was rehearsing, was terrified. I was so stressed out and nervous about it, rehearsing my speech. It's supposed to last 5 minutes. And Bill looked up when I was rehearsing and said, "Forget that 5 minutes. Go as long as you want. There's no bell. There's no PTI. Tony's not here to stop you. Just talk until they carry you off." And, you know, when you have that kind of person in the room all the time, and Bill became that, from this introvert who stuttered to that bigger-than-life figure that Rick Carlisle described, you know, I was trying to explain, my son is like, who is this person? And I said, go watch. Don't look up his numbers. Go watch him play. Watch what he was like for Portland. Watch how the sort of the modern center has evolved in sort of the image of Bill Walton, who could do all of the things, not just play on the post, but do everything. And so there was the player, there was the man who was committed to all these things, somebody who didn't grow up with sports only as a focal point, who grew up with music and art, somebody who sat on this set, not this particular one in LA, but a set in Bristol, because I sat with him. And he was in such pain, his feet and his back were in such pain that between shows, he at times had to lay on the floor just to find some physical relief. And he wasn't on the countdown long because he had to fly across the country and he couldn't do it. And so he could do the games in the Pac-12 games. He could do the games close to where he lived. And I could go on and on and on. I feel very fortunate to have been around basketball at a time where Bill Walton was. And everybody, talked to Kendrick Perkins when he went to play for the Celtics. Walton sat with him for an hour plus describing what it was like to be a Celtic and what he ought to expect and what he ought to try to live up to. And everybody who knew Bill has at least a story, and that's probably appropriate given his impact on all of it.
Yeah, it feels like, I love that you talked a little bit about who he was as a player, because it feels like for this young generation, they sort of know him as this caricature version of a sports broadcaster, but he was an imposing figure and transformational in many ways. Again, Bill Walton dies at 71 after a prolonged battle with cancer. Meanwhile, let's talk about his former team, the Boston Celtics, who are back in action tonight and looking for a sweep over the Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals. So, Mike, what has to happen, rather, for Indy to extend this thing and get it back to Boston?
Wow, we just got news, of course, when Rick Carlisle a few minutes ago announced that Tyrese Halliburton would not be playing tonight. I certainly was hoping it was possible. Not that he'd be out there hobbled, but that he might have gotten better quickly enough against all odds to play and be effective and be the same person that we saw, you know, during the Knicks series and during Game 1. But without that, I mean, they're really going to have that kind of contribution from everyone. We saw that. We saw that with that big lead. What was it, an 18-point lead in Game 3, and they just couldn't sustain it. And you now wonder if, having outplayed the Celtics for the balance of 2 out of the 3 games in this series, what can they find? Who can they go to? How do they summon enough without their best player? I mean, this is not a sport. I know people like to talk about next man up, but in the playoffs, when you're without your best player, and that's what Tyrese Halliburton is, that's almost too much to overcome. And they're not trying to overcome that against a team that's just pretty good. The Celtics have to be sort of smelling the finals right now. And they're watching the other series. They know what Dallas is doing to Minnesota. And I would think the great Celtics players of generations gone by, they would talk about, Larry Bird would talk about watching Magic play in the Western Conference Finals and not wanting to be outdone before they met in the finals. And Magic would talk about the same thing, watching the great Celtics teams, watching Bird and McHale and Bill Walton and say, oh, no. We're not losing tonight because they're winning and we don't want to play any more games than they do. And I wonder how, if any of that and all of that might or might not affect these Celtics. They have to feel it, and people talking about Bill in some sort of way as they go into this game tonight. I wonder how much and if it'll have any impact.
Yeah, you certainly wonder with everything that you laid out if this could be a trap game for the Pacers to take advantages. Right now, they're a 7.5-point home underdog in Game 4. Michael Wilbon, thanks for your analysis and mostly for your reflections on Bill Walton.
Thanks for that.